Today, we are going to show mathematically that the population worldwide in the last 1,400 years was basically zero. When the mainstream history tells us that at the exact same time period, where basically nobody was here, they were building palaces, castles, and cathedrals. And before we expose the population lie today, we have to get an understanding of how this all works, from the bottom up. Welcome to Reims, France, where we hold one of the most incredible structures in the world, and it's under investigation today. The Reims Cathedral, where we are being told that the construction of this cathedral started in the year 1211, where this is 813 years ago. Now, in the USA, they can tell us that these type of cathedrals were built in the 1800s. So they're at least trying to fit this type of construction into this mainstream timeline that we're given today. But when we go over to Europe, they just don't seem to care one bit. They throw dates around and everyone just accepted it for years. Could you imagine that next week, any city in the world tells us that one of these are going to be thrown together? I think the world would be shocked. Yet, when we are told that this was built 813 years ago, in the year 1211, we all just said, yeah, that sounds like a good year. Until now. Because we have patterns to look for, especially when a building holds the fire narrative, where we have found over 100 buildings to this point that hold a fire narrative, which is no longer mathematically possible. And we have found this fire pattern on this channel. And this one's going to be added to the group when we are told that this cathedral in France wasn't even the first one. They had an even earlier church that was destroyed by a fire a year before construction began on this new one. And this one lasts forever. So they knocked this thing out in 80 years when, let's be honest, if we didn't have a power tool or a car or a shipping company or any architectural training processes today, do any of us actually believe that our civilization would just knock this thing out in 80 years? Realistically, I'd love to know in the comments below how long you think this building would take today. I'm interested to see what you all think, especially because we're being told that this building was built over 800 years ago. The fact that we can see these buildings all over the world, they're still here. It's not like I'm talking about something that's a hidden mystery. We can all go there and look at it, and then compare it to the buildings that we produce today, which is supposedly over 800 years of evolving and advancing, and it's not even close. So let's think about this for a second. We are supposed to believe that they had construction down, and it was perfect since the beginning of time, yet nothing else advanced. Only construction, building palaces, was the only thing the 1200s were good for, apparently. The problem is that the buildings are the only thing that are left from the 1200s, which is exactly why they're forced to make these dates up in order to try to explain them into our fabricated timeline. Whereas a car, or a watch, a phone, a plane, and a helicopter, they've all been here before as well. They just aren't built into the ground all over the world for all of us to see, when the buildings are. We are told that the designer of this cathedral was Jean de Orbais. And who exactly was this master designer? Starting at point guard, making his debut for the France National Historians. Jean constructed the Abbey Church, or did he find it? Where they tell us that the Abbey was found at the end of the 7th century. And don't worry, they had construction down, of course. Still there in the town center today. When they go on to say 600 years later, Jean debuts building the St. Pierre St. Paul Church, where it was built between the end of the 12th century and early 13th century. And we have all of this documented, of course. No. Today, we are going to show that there were mathematically, basically, no people here in the 12th and the 13th century. A time that the mainstream history likes to tell us was knocking out palaces. So they were just throwing dates around, telling us that they constructed the St. Paul Church between the end of the 12th and beginning of the 13th century, from 800 years ago. And we were all just nodding in acceptance for 200 years, with zero documentation proving this. This is all based on trust. And this group that we're supposed to be trusting has proven to be pretty shady, where they tell us that the architecture is superb, particularly the facade with its 2 towers, the choir with ambulatory, with 5 radiating chapels. Interesting. And telling us that in 1835, that the population of this location was only 1,000 people. And the population of England since 1801, the exact timeline that we're talking about here worldwide, from the beginning point of this fabricated mainstream timeline, beginning around 1776, was at around 9 million people. It has grown to over 56 million in just the last 220 years. So if we do the math on this, the population is decreasing at a rate of 83.92% in just the last 220 years. And this fact alone should get everyone thinking. This stat shows that in the year 1141, the time period that they're talking about here, according to the math, based on data that they're providing, the population of England would sit at 37,898 people. In the entire country, having only 37,000 people in the year 1141 and knocking out palaces is not mathematically probable at all. You would think that there would be a single argument that goes the mainstream history's way. You would think that if their tales were true, this type of stuff would not happen. Yet, every single time you go deeper, there is yet another flaw. The worldwide population mathematically was basically 0, based on everything that we know and have seen. In my opinion, I believe that anything before 1776 is basically fabricated, and an attempt to fit into this timeline that we are all in. And this is when we take it a step further and we go to Spain. And according to the worldometers.info, Spain's population sits at roughly 47 million people, growing around 18 million people in the last 69 years. This drop off of people is so dramatic worldwide that, in my opinion, proves that the beginning of our timeline, our batch of people, was simply not that long ago. This is according to their math, their numbers, that anyone in the world can go look at. These people of the 12 and 1300s were supposedly also without shipping companies. They were without power tools, no light bulbs, and suffering. Again, they give us these stories of the past and tell us that there were events. They tell us all of these things where the population was this and that. But at the end of the day, we are not 100% sure that these stories from the 1300s are true. So the only math we can go off of is what we are provided from when we are actually here and documenting it. And now we can do the same thing with the worldwide population, where the population is decreasing at a rate of 66.1765% every 69 years. The rate of the population worldwide should not be increasing or decreasing by 66%. This is obviously showing that there's something going on. At this rate, 1886 would have realistically only had 928 million people, and 1817 worldwide would mathematically already have been down to 314 million people. And this is information that is provided to us, sitting right here in front of our faces, where they, in my opinion, were just waiting for us to find this. At this point, I think this is a game to this group to see who can figure this out. All of this information is all here provided with clues. All we have to do is simply look. The math doesn't lie. The worldwide population would mathematically drop down to only 106 million people in 1748, which was only 31 years after we are told that this group began. In 1679, according to this math, there were only 35 million people here. Worldwide, the population in 1610 would have only been 11.8 million. 3.9 million people in 1541, and if we bring it all the way back to the year 1200, 800 years ago, the exact same year that the mainstream history is telling us all about, like they were there and saw it happening themselves. They saw those 1200s and 1300s people just smacking those stones right into place, and they're there forever. They are telling us that it was built at the end, not the beginning, but at the end of the 12th century at this rate. Every 69 years, decreasing by 66% overall. Nobody is even here. Only 17,700 people worldwide, and this is all based on basic math and numbers that are provided to us. And if this is true, this completely disproves these stories, these tales, that people in the 13th century were building massive cathedrals. It basically puts an end to all historical narratives suggesting that a population of basically nobody, more specifically 17,000 people worldwide, were as advanced or more advanced than we are today in terms of construction that we can still see today, yet being primitive, wearing knight outfits, and fighting with swords, having zero power tools, no light bulbs, riding around on horses, and not having a single truck to ship millions of pounds of stone. No form of communication other than using their local raven to send messages to far lands, having provided zero factual evidence that they were ever even transporting stones, and zero mention of any training processes ever, leaving this part of the story out every single time, or ever explaining how these shipping routes were all figured out. Where is the evidence that we need to show that their stories are true? Where is it? That civilization of nobody with nothing had the capabilities to construct castles, cathedrals, basilicas, and the rest. No. Once you actually stop and think about it for 2 seconds, it simply doesn't add up. The 1200s, riding by feathers and sleeping in huts, suffering in winters, yet knocking out massive cathedrals, faster and in most cases much better than we do today. And they last for thousands of years, and they survive floods, hurricanes, and the rest. And their population was mathematically proven to be basically nobody. This tale that we are told is nonsense at this point. Now that we all have an understanding that the worldwide population, the math, is on our side, that this is not probable. An ancient cathedral located in Athens, Greece. A photo that was taken in 1860, 164 years ago, where we have shown that the worldwide population was just over 300 million, nowhere near the 8 billion mark that we are told that we have today. A cathedral that was sitting on dirt. We're gonna zoom in on this thing and find something incredible. The detail on the front of this building is unbelievable. We know that Tartaria's flag was a griffin. We've seen this logo on buildings all over the world, which we have even seen in episode 40, when we went to Wisconsin, a civilization that I believe most likely originated in the Pacific Ocean, in a no-fly zone today, and spread out to the rest of the world from that point on. As we have shown in episodes 60 and 61, as we get closer to the front of this building in Greece, we have a logo of the previous civilization. And again, these photos were taken in the 1800s in a collection by Nicholas Katsimpoulas. And here we have the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. And I was just looking at this area on Google Earth, where there is another hill next to the Acropolis. I saw these stairs on the side of this hill. And it's weird because they won't let you drop the view down on them and get a closer look at them. It seems to me like this grass and dirt is covering a much larger structure that we can't see, with the stairs being exposed on the side. It looks like it's been melted and they've just built on top of it. It's very strange. So here at the top, that's where these stairs are. And down here at the bottom is the Acropolis. So you can see how close they are to each other. And before we even look at the mainstream narrative surrounding it, it should just show anyone in a split second that this site was clearly constructed by an advanced civilization. We have detailed columns all over the place. We have some sort of stage here, and we have a mainstream story that should be a lot of fun for us today. And now that we have unlocked the advanced civilization of Mu in episodes 60 and 61 that I think a lot of us enjoyed, we understand where these buildings and people most likely originated from, where Lemuria holds the name Mu inside of it, putting it right in our faces. The Hill of Muses, where Mu is also right in the name, meaning a type of goddess in Greek mythology. Another connection to Mu. It's very interesting. And before we go on with this mainstream narrative, I have to point this out. We all understand that these scaffolding that they have here for decades are put here to make us believe that our civilization is somehow helping the ancient structure survive, repairing it, when we all know that it doesn't need our help at all. This site was obviously destroyed on purpose. It is not crumbling and falling apart over time. The scaffolding is, in a sense, a magic trick. It's there to make 99% of people think that our civilization is giving this place an upgrade, making our civilization think that we are more advanced and that it needs our help, when it doesn't need our help at all. When we construct our buildings like this, and then you have the previous civilization's work towering over it, we are not evolving and we are not advancing. We have a side-by-side comparison right here. Now that we have a solid understanding of this area and what it looks like a little bit, let's all take this thing up a notch and have some fun. We know that the population mathematically was basically nothing in the 1200s. We've calculated it to around 17,700 people worldwide. Now, could you imagine the 600s based on the math and the data that we've been given, at a decreasing population rate of 66.17% every 69 years, where we saw that there would have only been 11.8 million people in 1610 and 17,000 people in the year 1196. Well, I did the math, and based on the numbers that they have provided us, and based on a 66.1765% population decrease rate per 69 years, in the year 600, the population worldwide would have been 3 people, meaning that either the beginning of human existence was in or around the year 644, based on math, or something massive happened and reset the population very recent. Either way, something massive is going on here that's just been uncovered, especially when the mainstream history tells us that the Acropolis of Athens, Greece, was constructed on a massive hill around the year -1300 to -1200, which we know the population worldwide would have been 0. Even if the population hasn't always decreased at 66%, the simple fact is that going back in time, the population decreases. This is proven through the data that they provided us. The population in -1300, however you want to go about it, would have been 0. If you are going off the mainstream story, their data, you can say that there were plagues. You can say that there were these stories, when we know that these stories have massive flaws at this point. Anything provided hundreds of years ago can easily be picked apart. We have done this hundreds of times at this point, based on facts, things that we can prove, things that we have here right in front of us, data. It proves to me that we aren't wrong. The population data was always a massive key for us, a key that proves that there was a previous civilization here before us, and something massive happened in this place that we all live, right around the year 1776, worldwide. This information, this data, that 3 people were here worldwide in the year 644. This math, it's been here. It's always been here. It's just been waiting for us to see it. And now that we all do, we can all go much, much deeper. It's been a while since we've investigated my personal favorite location for the old world research. A place that by just being there will put you right back into the old world instantly. And that place is Budapest, where we have Buda Castle, where they have broken the rooms of this palace into 6 different things, including a national gallery, a historical museum, and a library. A palace library in Budapest, where we know this isn't the only library in Budapest, where they also have the Metropolitan Urban Library, located right down the road, housing Budapest's largest public collection of books, over 1.1 million volumes. And Budapest must like their books, since we also have the Americana Public Library of Budapest. And we've seen this one before, which is right next to the Parliament building. Have you ever seen a library like this in your life? Do any of our towns have any future plans to knock any libraries out that look anything like this in the upcoming months? No. So these libraries are all right next to each other. Let's go back to the first one, within the walls of Buda Castle. And this is very interesting. When they do the same thing that we've seen all over the world, and they name it something else. If you're just reading through this very quickly, they act like this thing was built in 1802, and they try to trip people up with the constant name-changing game. When we know this isn't true. We know that it wasn't originally a library. We know that this is a part of Buda Castle, where Buda Castle, we are told, and according to their story, was built between 1247 and 1265, 777 years ago. Not even close to this 1802 date. And they have these dates down. Everything is documented. No mistakes were ever made because these 1200s people were just hard workers. They weren't distracted, and they were just very dedicated to their craft. They worked by candlelight and touched up that stone with their lucky duck feathers. And it's here forever. They pretend to have these dates pinned down, 1247, and not 1246, and King Bela IV of Hungary, him and his crew, wrapped this thing up in 1265 on the dot. They know all of the information. The whole story is documented, but they give us zero details on the construction every single time. They don't tell us who these master builders were. They don't tell us where they learned this technology to build massive palaces. The king just got it done, and that's that. And we're supposed to just believe that. They give us these drawings of it, with two guys in a canoe, just taking it all in, from 1490 on the dot. When we all know that this could have been easily drawn last night. And 3 years later, they found some colored pencils and got this one done for us. It's very nice of them. 30 years later, the color is gone, and we are back to black and white. And two more people waving down here at the bottom. And Budapest had a very nice community in the 1530s, 100 years later, according to the mainstream narrative. 100 years later, we're back to color. Cannons firing at each other, where we all know that firing cannons into your own buildings is completely normal and realistic. Now, on September 1526, 498 years ago, Buda was sacked and burned, and the royal palace was not damaged, of course. The statues were destroyed a few years later. This is all documented, and the paperwork is in hand. No. Now I say this because going back through the first 63 episodes so many times, they have zero documented information about the 1800s. So many times, they don't know who the architect was or who the construction company was. You can see this for yourself when we emailed these buildings in episode 33. But they can pin down a date in 1526, and they know all about the story. Now, we also know that they tell us that Buda Castle was constructed in 1247 to 1265, where we have shown in episode 63, mathematically, according to the data that they provided us, that the world population is decreasing every 69 years, going back in time, at a rate of 66.1765%. And this is according to what we are being told, where we have shown that the population in 1265 was only 52,000 people worldwide, not just in Budapest. The size of a town today was the size of the world population in the year that they're telling us that they knocked out a palace that lasts forever. Now, we all know that this was constructed by a very powerful, very intelligent civilization, and the population worldwide definitely took a massive hit at some point before the 1700s, where humans, I believe, repopulate back to billions of people relatively fast. I think the real population chart looks much different than what we're shown. I think that there are many times that the population worldwide is in the billions. Based on what they're telling us, you can look at this chart for yourself, showing that basically nobody was even here in the 1200s, according to the mainstream narrative. This shows that nobody could build massive palaces with no power tools, zero equipment, no training processes. The 25 people that lived in Budapest, their only edge against our civilization today was having a little better work ethic. And that's not working anymore. These charts are nonsense. They show how fast humans truly do recreate to the population that we're at today, which is why they are able to reset the population so often, in my opinion, using the same ridiculous narratives over and over for the exact same buildings, using the same technology that was here before, and just pretending like it's all brand new. Where this place that we live is much different than we're being told, where everything is reused, everything is given back to us, everything is one big cycle, everything. The years go from January to December, every year, seasons, days, technology, and civilizations, everything is one big cycle, everything. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if we do too. I wonder if they know this. This all feels like some sort of treasure hunt, like some sort of game. To see who can find this information, where we have all heard the saying that they have to tell us like it's a rule, where I'm starting to think it's not that they have to tell us, it's that they want to tell us, like it's fun to them. To see who can crack the code, that nearly everything in our so-called reality is complete nonsense. And our true reality is much deeper than what we're told, where one of the only things that is free in this world is an indoctrination program that comes to your house in the morning and picks you up every single day as a small kid. And you don't know any different because your parents did the same thing too. So the last time we looked into Budapest, we saw this courtyard where they have this library, and it's right next to the Parliament building that we have talked about. It also has the Chocolate Museum and so much more, where today I want to show you all why Budapest is my #1 location worldwide. And it's because nearly every single building is a palace. If there's one place in the world I would want to visit, this is it. And I would love to go inside these buildings and see if there's basements, and see if these basements had tunnels, windows, and doors that lead to dirt. I wouldn't be shocked at all. We see this kind of stuff in the USA, so seeing it in Budapest, I'm sure these tunnels would be incredible. I wouldn't be shocked at all if these buildings are bigger than we can see under the ground. So here we have another museum where they have taken the true meaning of this building right off the front. Where this gets interesting. They tell us that the past 150 years of this building's history have been largely determined by a struggle to maintain its facilities and keep its collections safe. Struggling to keep its collections safe? From who? Is there a reason that Budapest is still filled with palaces and the rest of the world has had thousands of fires in individual buildings that we have located, thousands of buildings destroyed in so-called great fires, carpet bombed in wars, like we have seen in Dresden, Germany, where in my opinion, every single one of these major cities worldwide looked like Budapest. Budapest has survived all of these things, the great fires, the wars, and the rest. Is there something protecting this location? It's very interesting. And remember, this is the location that Nikola Tesla went and worked in 1881, where he was the chief electrician, and then went to the USA and had all of these incredible inventions. Now, were they inventions, or did he learn a few things while over in Budapest? Now, we have seen the exact same narrative before, where we go back to our Balboa Park episodes, where they say that they moved from building to building over and over and over, before finally settling on a palace. And it lasts forever and looks like it was built by the gods. We are told that they moved into its first home in 1892. 1 year later, inadequate conditions forced them to move again into an apartment building. 1898, their permanent location was born. Well, no, because 1906 they moved again to the Millennial Exhibition's empty Hall of Industry. But in 1924, storm damage, of course, prompted yet another relocation over to a school building, where 5 years later they reopened using 30 schoolrooms until 1975 rolls around and they get the Palace of Justice building. So they just throw all of these locations into the story to distract us all from the point. And the point is that this is a palace and we want to know the true history of the building. We don't care about this random group that is occupying the palace. At least not today we don't. It's literally throwing a bunch of nonsense out there and hoping we give up by the time we get to the end of the story. That has nothing to do with what we want to know. The good thing is we found the building and we have gotten through the nonsense. The Palace of Justice was designed by Elias Hausmann. And we're definitely going to get back to this guy later in the episode. In 1891, knocking this building out in 3 years in the 1800s, before the power tool was invented. In 1895, where it has a lobby with marble columns and an impressive staircase. And this is just your everyday museum in Budapest. If you want to feel like you're back in the previous civilization, all you got to do is go to Budapest. It is by far the most incredible place that I've seen to this point. And I honestly don't think that we've even covered 1% of it, where they also tell us that this building is under renovation. And I was honestly disappointed to see that last sentence, because we all know that restoration really means destruction. So I found some really cool pictures of this place that I thought you'd all want to see. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have the best part, in my opinion, where we are given the individual that is pinned as the man that got this palace done, Mr. Hausmann, where we know that when they pin a guy to one building, they pin him to a lot more. They give us this list where they pin this character to 39 palaces, where the first one was destroyed by a fire. So we can add that one to our running tally. And they even pin him as a contest winner of the Parliament building. But they just didn't want to use his design because they have so many more contest winners out there in the 1800s. It's ridiculous. They destroy 6 of his buildings, including his first 4 buildings. And they tell us that this guy was knocking these palaces out all over Budapest in the 1800s before power tools, in like 1 or 2 years each. All of them coming back to back to back. When he starts building in 1870 and gets both buildings done that year, 71 to 72, another one done. Between 1874 and 1893, just 19 years, this guy is pinned to getting 33 palaces done. When we know that in modern times, realistic times, when we are all here to see it, the Kluksinski building in Chicago takes 14 years. One building, not 33 buildings, and it's a box, not a palace. And we have power tools, and this guy doesn't. Where it's time to see some of these buildings that this guy is pinned to. Let's start at the top. The first one that they didn't destroy, Church of the Sacred Heart, where this is a worldwide agenda, a worldwide narrative key. And we unlocked it right here on this channel in the 8th of April, 1848. A huge fire burst out and the Catholic Church burnt down to the ground, where the Savior, the man, the myth, and the legend builds them a new one. When we know that this church, the one we're looking at, it is the original building. Finding a fire narrative never gets old to me. It actually surprises me more and more every single time. It's really shocking that this information, this clue, was just sitting here and we never saw it until now. They tell us that this building was done in a year, and then the next one was done in 2 years, where we clearly have technology on the roof of this thing. And it's very odd when you look at their Facebook page, where we know that they tell us that it was constructed in 1878. These gravestones are dated 1792 to 1869 and 1796 to 1834. This is not even close to the construction date that they're telling us of 1878, and would predate this master builder character, where we are told that he was born in 1847, which is 13 years after this person passed away that lived there. So we know at this point that something major is off with this narrative and this character, and this character is beginning to look sketchy. Not only is that all strange, but we also have this guy off building like 6 other palaces at the same exact time. The City Hall Amphitheater, which was destroyed. And then we have this, his 11th building in his young career, where he was only 23 years old when he began knocking out palaces without a power tool, just using his local donkey to pull the stone. We now are given the Austro-Hungarian Bank, which I believe is definitely helping us pin down where our timeline begins. We know about the population. We know about the Great Fires. We know about the inventions. And now we need to see when the money all begins, where they tell us where it started issuing banknotes in 1762, where we also know that this group started in 1717. And for the first time in this timeline's history, the Austrian government issues paper money and caused inflation, where we're just getting started. Today, we are going to investigate a location that does not belong in our historical narrative. Situated 7,000 feet high, located in Turkey, we have Mount Nemrod. Yet another location that definitely should have been headlined in History 101. This place should have been one of the first things that we were all told about. Yet my history classes mentioned this location a total of 0 times. Clearly these heads did not fit into our narrative, where they are 100% destroyed. We can see that 7,000 feet up in the mountain did not matter to the past. Any altitude would do just fine. With their hammers and chisels in hand, they would climb up the mountain, construct perfect statues, and be back home for dinner. The narrative tells us that the pattern of damage to the heads suggests that they were deliberately damaged, where it is admitted. And of course, they will never know who it was that destroyed them, where they are trying to tell us that they know exactly who built them and the exact year, where they tell us that it was 62 BC, not 61 and not 63, but negative 2086. They have all of this written down in their journals. No. And they begin to give us backstories on these statues, telling us that they were once seated with names of each god inscribed on them. How would they know this? That they were once seated with names of each god inscribed on them. How would they know this? Unless, of course, they were the ones that removed it. It's very interesting. Where at some point, the heads of the statues were removed from their bodies. Now, within this community, we have shown 80 episodes exposing massive lies within the narrative that we have all been told. We show that there was a previous civilization here, a civilization that was extremely advanced. We have documented where a lot of them may have gone. We have also shown how our current civilization today has been repopulated. We know that there are groups funding these projects, funding these narratives to keep this previous civilization out of our history books. And these groups that were created in the last 60 years continue to go to these incredible sites and destroy them. Renovate them. Where this photo shows their work, in my opinion. You can see the heads at the bottom. And then you can see the stones were placed around the bottom of them. Clearly something that our civilization would do. The supposed evolved and advanced group. Just piling stones on the bottom of them. Just very advanced work. It's completely destroyed. And these heads at the bottom are not the same color as the heads above. So I'm guessing there were more statues that have been blown into millions of pieces here. And then we have this photo where look at all of that grinded up material right behind them. Did we just throw the previous civilization's work right into a grinder and spit it out right behind the statues? You tell me. Here's a different angle of it, where I know I've seen this before. Anyone else see what I see? Let me know in the comments below. A very clear destruction site in my opinion. And here we can see just how difficult this would be 2,086 years ago, where we have seen this narrative before, when they built a cave thousands of feet in the air just to get a little privacy, when a much better location to chisel perfect statues 2,086 years ago would have been on the ground. And we all know this. They even have these stone molds where Turkey was supposedly running out of space 2,080 years ago. And this site was used for chiseling and stone molding practice, where we are told even the known history of the kingdom is a little shrouded in history. Shrouded to hide something. Where we are told the name of the builder. They know exactly who built these things, if you can believe it. These sculptures were supposedly built by King Antiochus, built as a tomb sanctuary for himself. No. Where the facial features are Greek and the clothing is more Eastern. And for the best part, and we are just getting started today, that these structures are no longer standing in their original positions. So we're at the point that we know that someone, a group, most likely the same group that we have seen all over the world, this group has most likely already been to this location, clearly destroying it. We have shown very clear evidence of this today, very clearly destroying the previous civilization's work, 7,000 feet into the mountains. Oh, hey, look who has a page on this place. It's our great friends over at the WMF. It's crazy that we have the exact same interests as this group over and over. It's so nice of them to help preserve our favorite spots, where they even have a nice write-up about this location. So let's see what they have to say. The Armenian king ruled the small territory in the 1st century BC, where the king reached a peaceful agreement with Pompey. Of course he did. Yes, very peaceful. There were lots of witnesses. It's a very nice gesture. Lots of handshaking and laughs. And we all know this is 100% a very true story. No, we don't. Where 5 years later, on the dot, the Roman Senate recognized the king as a friend. It's so nice that they were all getting along. It's also so nice that the mainstream treats us like little kids, telling us these incredible stories of friends in the making, where 2,000 years ago, they had master sculptors. But then we get to the 1800s, and we're all back to riding around on donkeys and living in sheds. Master sculptors carving a monumental scene of the king seated among the gods, including Greco-Roman deities. And then Abe Lincoln, a president of the United States, is born in a shack in 1809. So where exactly is the evolving and advancing thing that we're all told about over and over? 2,000 years of advancing. We're told by the mainstream narrative that 2,000 years ago, we had master sculptors carving seated kings 7,000 feet high on a mountain. After 1,800 years of advancing, you would think that we would have evolved a little bit and built more than just a couple statues on a mountain. You would think that we would have advanced, maybe a little bit even, into maybe making stone sheds at the very minimum. But no, we were making wooden sheds that didn't even have a bathroom. You had to go outside to the outhouse. Are we all seeing this? It's incredible when you really think about it. We are told there were some conflicts with Julius Caesar, and we've seen this in episode 77, our 1 hour long episode, where the owner just orders a palace, and it's there forever. And now they say that 2,000 years ago, Antiochus orders the assembly of a mountain of crushed rock. He's just ordering it. Any delivery man will do. Back 1,800 years ago, where I think this is a massive lie. That 50-meter pile of crushed rock is 100%, in my opinion, the crushed stone of the incredible work of the previous civilization. All in my opinion, of course. But I think it's pretty obvious at this point. We just need 50 meters of crushed stone way up on that mountain, 7,000 feet in the air. What would we do without that crushed stone 2,000 years ago? This story is ridiculous, where the statues, each over 9 meters tall, have all been damaged by earthquakes. But these were no ordinary earthquakes. These were the earthquakes that would chop the heads off of statues from 2,000 years ago. Extremely picky earthquakes that just wanted the heads. All documented. No, of course it's not. Where the earthquakes took their stone heads and sent them rolling down the hillside. Or did someone go in there and remove the heads and grind most of them up and put them right behind the site, 50 meters high, and then roll the other ones down the hill? What do you think? You tell me. Where it was, of course, rediscovered in 1881. So let's get this straight. They didn't even know about this place until 1881. And archaeological activity only began in 1953. Rediscovered in 1881. Exactly like we have talked about here so many times. With our civilization, all of us, just starting only a few hundred years ago. Our timeline that we are all given, beginning around 1700, finding this place in 1881, and then knowing all about the negative 62s, 2,086 years ago. Knowing all about it. Not 2,085 years ago, but 2,086 years ago on the dot. They know all about this date. Can you see the lie very clearly now? Where since the start of the excavation, most of the heads have been found. Most of them. Not all of them, but most of them. Incredible. Where the INF was charged with the stabilization, conservation, and presentation of this site, where we know that they just found this place in 1881. So for 1,900 years, this place needed a total of 0 restoration projects. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, because we found it, it now needs our help. Where I want to know, do you really think that this place needed our civilization's help? I'm really curious what you think. Please let me know. Solicited WMF to lead the stone conservation and structural consolidation initiatives and to participate in drafting a management plan, where we have seen this before in other narratives, where this is supposed to be a tomb, we are told. Yet there is no body in there. Indeed, the body of the king. It's thought to have been buried in the chambers, beneath his man-made mountain, though his tomb has yet to be found. So the mainstream pretends to know all about this site. They pretend to know the dates and the names, all associated with the construction, and the reasons why it's there. Yet, the one-time physical evidence of their claim needs to be presented. Their claim is proven to be a lie. There's no individual in there, where we know they haven't found anything. It's not a tomb. Never has been, and it never will be. So are they still looking? Are they still on the hunt for this person? No, of course not. Where I'm sure it's possible, just like we've seen at Easter Island in episode 60, that some of these heads are just the top of the entire structure. Missing heads, where these heads were possibly giving us depictions of what the previous civilization might have looked like, giving too much away to all of us, and just needing those earthquakes to chop all of their heads off and rolling them down the hill and leaving everything else perfectly in place. It makes total sense. Oh no, it doesn't. I am just so thankful that we have so-called experts that went to college, majoring in time travel, to tell all of us about the year 62 BC. Because what would we ever do without them? I decided to check this place out on Google Earth, and the very first place that I pick to drop the guy down, I see this, where you can see the site, and then turn the camera to the side. And we have this thing over here on the side, which is pretty incredible. Now you can see that if these are true depictions of the past, these individuals' heads were so much bigger than ours are today. We are tiny compared to the past, in my opinion. We've shown this a lot. We are even shown that there are tunnels at this site, entrances to an overall structure. And of course, right near the site, you have this bridge showing that this whole area is extremely significant to the past. A bridge that is still working today, where our bridges fall apart in a few decades. And we all know this. Let's check this place out even more, where we can see this mound of crushed up stone, where my guess is that something is underneath it, with things being buried, as you can see in this depiction right here. But I think that there's something much bigger than this, possibly further down as well. It's very interesting. Remember, all we are told about it is that they ordered it to be done, and that was it. So we don't get much information on this mound of crushed up stone, other than them just ordering it for no reason at all. And do you understand how hard this would be to crush up this much stone and place it here, up on a 7,000 foot high mountain, 2,000 years ago? Just order it, and it's there forever. In the timeline that we are told about, this is ridiculous. So we started over there, and then over here, we have more stone structures. So let's just go around more and spin it back. And you're going to see that the earthquake also attacked this statue's head as well. Goodness, can you believe this earthquake? Honestly, how did we believe this nonsense for so long? Earthquakes that just attack heads of stone structures on a 7,000 foot hill. I can't believe this. Who else sees a massive destruction site? I do wonder, why did they leave any of them? Why didn't they just destroy them all? And look at the location of these things. Just coming way up here to carve statues and lay a big mound of crushed up stone. All for a tomb, and no tomb is even there. This is not the true story in my opinion. It's completely made up. And on Google Earth, you can even see people going up to the top. So I'm not sure if you can still do that today, but I would love for somebody to scan with ground penetrating radar and see if something is under all of these broken pieces of stone. Oh, what is this? In September of 2012, a group of archaeologists using ground penetrating radar and related techniques discovered a pyramidal shaped chamber about 6 meters long and 2.5 meters wide and 3 meters high, and about 15 meters or 50 feet beneath the apex of the Nemrod tumulus. They are letting us know that there are things under this stone. It was not just an order to get a bunch of crushed up stone for no reason. This was deliberate. There is something underneath, and we are correct. They speculate it could be a sarcophagus, along with other objects, possibly statues, where 2 other chambers have been located near the larger pyramidal chamber, where the Turkish authorities are not allowing the site to be excavated. So we can only speculate as to what is in the hidden chambers, where the Turkish authorities stumble on this place in the 1800s. They did not construct it, but now they are not allowing the world to see what is under all of that crushed up stone, where the ground penetrating radar gave this depiction underneath that stone, proving that there are things being hidden from us. Can you see very clearly now that we are correct? That this is a worldwide operation to suppress the truth. We have seen this in China, where they have trees and dirt on top of pyramids, hiding things that would explain our true past, hiding things under massive mounds of crushed up stone, where the stone was most likely the old world's work. Are we understanding now how this works? How the narrative is controlled 100% everywhere? How you are not allowed to know what is really going on at these locations, at these sites, and you're just told about a friendship story instead. A bunch of nonsense, where most people believed it until now. Where we are just getting started on this channel, we will be uncovering another site, this time located all the way in Syria, where we are told that this site was constructed in 1300 BC, predating Turkey's site by nearly 1,300 years. A site that we were told had 3 phases, and they know the exact dates of all of them, where we are shown the exact same thing, where griffins, a possible connection to Tartaria, griffins that have their heads removed from the overall statue yet again, where if they were teaching about these sites in our history classes, I think I would have been a little bit more excited to get brainwashed every day. Removing the heads, exactly like they did in Turkey, where I don't see this as a coincidence at all, especially when they are located over 200 miles apart, destroying the truth, which is most likely the exact same thing that they did with the head of the Sphinx, located in Giza, Egypt, where we have footprints, where we are told that these footprints, each about 3 feet, 3 inches in length, we are told are carved into the stone floors. Where is it possible that these are not carvings and they are actual footprints of the past, where these feet are feet of an individual measuring 66 feet in height, giants, all located at Andara, a site that was just found in 1955. Yet again, another location that is destroyed, set atop an artificial hill, where you have to ask, what could still be underneath this site, where they tell us that this place has a lot of similarities to Solomon's Temple, also known as the first temple in Jerusalem, all located in Syria. Again, I'm at the point where I don't believe that these stories, these locations, were from thousands and thousands of years ago. I believe that this all occurred a lot closer to our timeline than we've been told, possibly only a few hundred years ago. And these dates of 1300 BC and 740 BC are given to us by some random excavator, where the surveying sculptures depict lions and sphinxes are comparable to the cherubim of the first temple. Also left to speculation is to whom the temple is dedicated, where yet again, the temple was significantly damaged by Turkish jets during the military operation in 2018, where 60% of the structure was reduced to rubble. And we can see the site here, where it looks like there's some weird pattern in the ground all over the place. It's very interesting. And of course, no street view here on Google Earth, with the closest street view located up this road. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we just can't see this place? And we have more from the footprints, and we've all heard of the fingerprints of the gods, Graham Hancock. But have we just located the footprints of the gods? The entire front facade of the temple has been destroyed, and the site's emblematic basalt lion was stolen in 2019 by members of the Hamza division, which is part of the Syrian National Army, where at this point, we can all see very clearly that our true history is being destroyed worldwide and has been for a very long time. Let me know in the comments what you think that they wanted to hide from us. I have an idea, but I want to know all of your opinions at this point, after everything that we've discussed. This is a photo of the site from before the bombings, where it's clearly already been destroyed. Heads have been removed that would have shown depictions of the past that do not fit in at all with the narrative that we've all been told today. And here is a photo of the giant lion that was stolen in 2019, where in my opinion, it looks like something that would hold something of value inside of it. Here are more photos of the site before the bombing. And here is the site today. Talk about going into the middle of nowhere to drop a bomb, purposefully destroying an extremely valuable site. There's no doubt about it. This was deliberate, complete destruction of the past, worldwide. Like we have shown, it is no longer a question if we are correct or not. We're spot on at this point. There is something massive being hidden from us, our true past, our true purpose. And it is not just one location of the world. It is in every single country, every city, every town. We are not told the truth about our historical narrative. There was an extremely advanced group of people right here where we are today, a massive group. They were here much closer to our timeline than what we have been told. And knowing this unlocks so many questions, where questions from thousands of people, all with different points of view, different skill sets, different knowledge, all working together. These questions, they will always find answers.